Hey, what's up guys? My name is Brett Westwood and today we are going to create a multi-step form using the MERN stack. So we are going to use Mongo, Express, Node.js, and React. React will be for the front end and we're going to do a create React app with TailwindCSS as the styling. Before we start creating this multi-step form, I just wanted to lay out the basis of how the form is going to look and explain the dynamics of it. So this form is going to be a multi-step form. So for example, you've probably been on a website where you have to fill out information and then you click the button next. When you click the next button, it asks you for more information and then you probably click next again, fill out more information, and then submit the form. So that's exactly what we're going to do and make today. The way we're going to do this is we're going to have a parent level component and then we're going to have components underneath it to represent each part of the form. Okay, so now let me pull you into my screen and minimize myself. First thing we are going to do is we are going to create a new folder on my desktop. You can create this folder wherever you want. We are going to call this multi-step form demo. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our code editor. I'm going to use VS Code. We're going to have a blank VS Code editor. And then I'm going to drag the folder we just created, which is empty, into VS Code. I'm going to put VS Code only as half of my screen because the other half is going to be the development server, the front end, all the UI. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to kind of set up our backend code right here to make it more efficient and easier to code and organized. So right here we have the main folder. We're going to have two big folders in here. We're going to have a backend folder and a front end folder. The backend folder you can name whatever you want. I'm going to name it API. And then you also can name the front end folder whatever you want. I'm going to name, actually before I name the front end folder, I'm just going to create a React app. And that's what's going to create this folder. So make sure you're at the root level, not the API. I'm going to open up the terminal here. Make sure we are in the root and not in the CD of API. I'm going to npx create React app, and it's going to be called client. And then we press enter. And now this is just going to take us a few minutes. Okay, now I'm back and the React app has downloaded all its necessary files needed. And as you can see right here at the top left, we have a client folder with a bunch of files in it. So now I'm going to just run an npm start. Actually, before I do that, let me make sure I cd into client. And then we're going to npm start. This is going to start the development server. And I'm going to have it on the second right side of my screen so you can see both. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this template that the React app gives us. And you could also use more than just create React app. You could use Vite, you could use Next.js, you could use kind of any framework you want. For this video, this does well. So we're going to delete the files test, logo, setup test. And then when I delete these, the app is going to break. We are going to go inside the app.js. Let's remove the logo because we don't have it anymore. We are going to move the app CSS. And we are going to move everything inside of the parent div. And we can remove the class name. And then we can just put hello. So as you can see right here, hello pops up. I am zoomed in at 500%. So that's why it looks big. And also let me zoom in my code real quick so you can see it better. Okay, there we go. So now inside of the app CSS, we can remove everything in here. Index CSS, we can remove everything as well. Index.js looks fine. Yeah, everything looks fine. And we could keep the report web vitals. Okay, cool. So everything seems to be working. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize TailwindCSS into our application. So the easiest way to do that is just to look at the docs. The website makes it very user-friendly. to do. So all you have to do is type in TailwindCSS React install. If you're doing Next.js, just type in Tailwind Next.js install. So the documents tell you to create your project, which we just did. And now we have to install Tailwind CSS. So when you do this, make sure you're in the client folder. So we're going to open up another terminal pack here. We're going to go into CD client. And then let me just actually, okay, so I'm in CD client. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to npm install this Tailwind CSS dev dependency. The capital D is for dev dependency. So this dependency is only for developmental purposes only. So we are going to install that, and to make sure it got installed, we could check our package JSON. We scroll down, dev dependency, Tailwind CSS, looks good. Next, we're going to initialize Tailwind CSS, and this is also in the front end. And when we do this, we're going to get a Tailwind config file. So as you can see, it popped up right here, and this is in the client folder as well. So the next thing is we are going to have to go inside of this config file that just got created, and we are going to add this light blue section for new content. And this allows us to edit inside the source folder, either JavaScript or TypeScript. There we go. Everything looks good. So now we're allowed to use Tailwind. Step 4 is we are going to go to our index.css and install these base CSS packages. Everything looks good. And then after we do this, step 5 is going to say npm run start. So if your server is running like mine is, we are going to stop the server because you need to stop it or the effects usually don't take place. We are going to do npm start. So this one shut down. We get a new localhost 3000. We're going to go into our app.js and Tailwind CSS. All of the CSS happens usually in the JSX files or the JavaScript files. You can use CSS files, but at that point you might as well use regular CSS. Tailwind could look messy to somebody who's new to it, but I feel like it is pretty efficient to use, and you can kind of tell where everything is when you start to get a hang of it. So to make sure this Tailwind is actually working, we could do a background red of 500, and if that works, it is working. So as you can see, it is working. Let's just remove that. And the next thing is we are going to make folders in here in the source to make this more organized as well. So we're going to have a components folder and a pages folder. So first one I'm going to create is components. This is going to be pretty much each step of the way for the form. And then I'm also going to create a folder called pages. And the only page we're going to have here is we're going to actually have the form, which is going to be the parent of all the components, which is each step of the form. And just a heads up, PS, there is multiple ways to make multi-step forms. There's multiple ways to code. So there's no right way to code. There's multiple ways to do things. So this is just the way I'm teaching you guys. If you have any questions, obviously just leave them in the comments. If you're enjoying this video too, hit the like button and also subscribe for more. And I would definitely appreciate that because I'm definitely trying to grow this channel. Okay, so after the components, we are going to have, I'm going to put 3 different parts of the form. The first part is going to be your sign up information. So like username, email, password, and confirm password. Second part is going to be your personal information like name, last name, address, zip code, city, etc. And then we're just going to have more information, which they could just, I guess, tell us more about themselves. So we're going to name these accordingly. First one, new file, we're going to have sign up part.jsx RAFCE. This is the E7 extension in VS Code. We're also going to do another file, and this is going to be personal info part.jsx. And then we're going to do another file called more info part.jsx. And then RFC. Okay, so we're going to close all three of these tabs. We don't really need to work them right now at this moment. And then let's create a pages, which is going to be the main one. Like I said, one page. We're going to have a form.jsx. And this is going to be the main page where most of the logic happens. And this is where we're going to be passing down props from here to there. And we are going to make sure that we put all of the state into an object so we don't pass that many props and the code looks cleaner. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to import all the components and pages to make sure the app makes sense. So obviously our parent component is going to be our app. So we're going to import the form into here. Auto populates, and then we're just going to replace hello with the form component, which is a self-closing tag. And as you can see, it changes to form because that's what is set inside the div of form. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to go into the form. And also, by the way, if it says import React from React, you could actually just delete that. That's not needed anymore. So this one, we're going to import all the components. So first one could be sign up part. Let me make sure I'm spelling it right. Yeah, sign up part from, and then we just got to go out of here into the components, and then we have to go into sign up part. Import personal info part. And this usually lets you auto populate. I don't know why that's not doing right now. Sometimes it gets buggy, but as you can see, it's auto populating now, but usually it lets you auto populate when you start typing. And then last one, import okay, perfect. All right, so now we're just going to work on styling the front end UI of the forms, which is going to only be a register form as a multi-step form. And then after we're done with the front end and all the state, we are going to create the back end, and then we'll hook it up at the end of the video. Everything will be timestamped, so if you do need to skip to a certain part and you just want to watch the front end or the back end, the timestamps will be below in the video. Okay, so creating the front end UI, the first thing I want is like an actual base that we can work around, that we could tell it's actually a form. So like I said, this is going to be most of the styling part is going to be right here, and this does take time. I've already styled most of it before making this video, so I'm just going to go through what I've already made kind of in a sense, but I'm still going to type it up as we go. So TailwindCSS, like I said, all the CSS is going to be here, and the syntax will be a little different than regular CSS, so you do have to learn that. But we're going to have a background of gradient to right from slate 100. It says more info is defined but never used. Okay, I think we're fine. Let me just console log this to make sure everything's running. It does. I think we just need to put something inside of here. Yeah, we do. Okay, cool. So as you can barely see right here, there is a background from right, background gradient from right from slate 100. And then we're going to have it to red 600. Let me close that up. Okay, cool. Next thing we're going to have too is we are going to have, let me see. Okay, cool. We're going to have a width of full. So this is going to be the width is going to be full. And also with TailwindCSS, everything is mobile optimized first. So if you actually do want to use media queries, it's all going to be done within here. So it's either going to be with like a SM, MD, LG. You'll see when I'm doing it. I don't really want to explain too much of Tailwind in this tutorial because that's not what it's about. But let's keep going. We're going to have a height of full, of min, height, full. We're going to have flex, flex column, justify center, padding top and bottom of 36. All small devices, we're going to have padding left and right of 6. On large devices, we're going to have padding left and right of 8. We're going to have a Z index of 100. And on mid-side screens and up, we are going to have a height of screen. Let me just zoom out because I don't see the red on here, which there should be red. I'm at zoomed in at 500%. Okay. Yeah, I don't see the red. So let me copy this code real quick at the top and paste it here. I might have had one space too many, which I probably did, but there we go. So that's the gradient style right there. Okay, so under this is going to be the main div wrapping our form. And inside we're going to have some JavaScript, which is going to be inside curly braces. And then we're also going to style this more. So we are going to have a progress bar at the top. So for this progress bar at the top, we are going to have a div. And then inside of that, we're going to have another div, just like that. So this is going to be our progress bar. So let me just put progress bar. We will style this later. And then underneath that, we are going to have pretty much our titles. So we're going to have a sign up, we're going to have a personal info, and then we're going to have a other info title. So we're going to have another div underneath this. And then this div is going to have some styling on it. We're going to have a small screens and up. We're going to have a margin left and right of auto. Small and up with full. And then small it up, max with mid-size. Okay, cool. And then you could also brand this with whatever you want. So we're going to have an image tag here. Image source. And then an alt tag. We could just put a slash. You can put whatever you want. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is I'm going to bring in an image from my computer. I'm just going to bring it into where am I going to bring it into? I'm going to bring it in. I'm just going to create another folder called assets. That doesn't, okay. We're going to drag and drop my image. I'm just going to rename it logo. Okay. Our code is breaking because we have nothing inside of the source. We are going to exit some of these pages, go back into the form, and we're going to have to import this now. So import logo from // assets / logo.png. Let's put in our logo here. And there we go. There's our logo. Now let's style this up a little bit. Class name. margin auto. We're gonna have a height of 24, which doesn't mean 24 pixels, but like I said, you could look at the documentation to see what it really means. Let me close this. Okay, so we have the image there, and right below the image, we could do an H1 tag. Okay, and this H1 tag, inside of it, we're gonna have titles. We are gonna change this later. We're not going to keep that there. We're going to have to make it dynamic. So when we're on a certain page, the title must change with that page. So you got to start thinking of the logic and how that could actually work. So this is, I'm going to start styling this real quick. Text of 3XL. And if this section does bore you with just like the CSS, you can skip this, or you can speed up the video and just kind of copy my code. I will put this down in the description, the code source file on GitHub, so you could just copy this part if you really want to. Okay. So we have that right there, and then underneath the H2 and then underneath this div as well, we are going to have another div surrounding our form. Nope. Okay. And then for this div right here, we're going to have the class name, margin top, we need 8. Small screens, margin of auto, small, width, full, small. And then I'm going to have one more div underneath here. Dove. Okay, and this div is going to have styling as well. This is going to have a background of white. Padding top and bottom of 8. Padding left and right of 4. We'll have a shadow. And then small, rounded, large. And then small padding left and right of 10. Okay, cool. So that's, you can see the form starting to take shape a little bit now. And underneath this div, we are going to have our logic. So this is where most of the magic is going to happen, most of the work we're going to do. So I'm just going to put logic here for now. And did I put it in the right spot? No, I didn't. So it's got to be inside of the white because it's going to be inside here. Okay. So this logic area is going to be pretty much where all the different components are going to go. And we're going to have to create a function above the return pretty much to tell us which logical page we're on based on a button click, an on-click event listener. We are going to do that in a little bit, but let's just finish the styling of this real quick. And then we're going to have one more div under here, which is going to store our 2 buttons. And this is going to be also inside of the white as well. So one more div, and then we're going to have 2 buttons. And then I'm also going to style these now. Like I said, I've already made this form in advance. I just want to type this out with you because I feel like that's the best way for me to do a video. So inside of this, this is for the button, the div for the button. We're going to have a flex, and then we're going to have a flex row. We want the buttons side by side. We want a gap of 3, so there's a gap between the buttons. And then padding top of 8. So this div is for these 2 buttons right here. And then the first button, we're going to have it as previous, just for now. And then this one will be next. And these will also be dynamic as well, the titles of the buttons. But here you see the buttons right here. And then we're also going to style the buttons too. And they're going to be the same style, so I'm just going to write it for one and then copy it for the other. So we're going to have a flex. We're going to have a cursor of a pointer. The width is going to be full. We're going to justify center. We're going to have rounded borders of medium with a border transparent. We're going to have a background of a custom color. So if you want to do a background of a custom color, you're going to have brackets and then the custom color code it needs. There we go. We're going to have padding top and bottom of 2. So you get a little more padding left and right of 4. The text is going to be small. The font medium. Text white. And then we're going to have a few things like a hover, a focus, an offset, all that. I am just going to copy that here, that part, and then paste it so we can speed this section up a little bit. So as you can see, if you want to do a hover, all you got to do is just type in hover, semicolon, and then whatever you want. So like background of indigo 700, as you can see there. So we are going to copy all the style of this button so we can put it in the other button as well. So we're going to have a class name and then paste. So as you can see there, there's the button. And then the div up here is what gives it the flex and the flex roll with the gap of 3 and the padding of top of 8. Okay, so now we have the basis of our form. Okay, so we're going to work on the first logic of this actual multi-step form right now. So the first logic I really want to work on, which is pretty basic and simple, is we are going to have 3 different titles for each section. So we could just name this const titles, make sure this is above the return, and then we're going to bracket it. So we're going to have 3 separate names for each title. Make sure the first one's going to be sign up. Second one we could do as personal info. And then third one we can do as appliance info. Or not appliance info, my fault. I'm looking at a different. We're just going to do it as we will do this one as more info. Oh my god. More info. Okay, cool. So now we have these titles and we could use this now dynamically inside of our code. So like I said, in the H2, the H1 where we have here titles, we are going to replace this with titles. Is it a capital T? No, it's not. Titles. And then we're going to have to get each title by its index. And we're going to have page here because we're going to name each index by page, but maybe we could just leave it blank and it still breaks. Okay. So for next thing we're going to have to do is, let me just remove this for now so the code doesn't look broken. And let's create this page and set page. So to change state in a React application, we obviously need the use state. So let's import use state at the top. First thing is first from React. And I usually like to have my state at the very top. So we are going to have a page and we're going to have a set page. And this is going to equal use state. And our first initial value is going to be 0 because we are going to be on page index 0, which is going to be sign up. So that would be the very first actual component of our sign up form. And then the only other use state we're going to need here is we're going to need some data, like form data. And we're going to put that in an object, and that's how we're going to get all the information from the form that the user fills out. So now, next step we're going to do is we are going to have to replace this logic right here with the page, okay? So we need to use the page's logic to come up with, depending on what page we're on. So we are going to do cons, and then we could write page display. We could do this as an arrow function. And we need some logic and ternary operators here. So the next thing we're going to do is pretty much if we're on page 0, so if page equals 0, which that means if page is on sign up, we need it to give us the sign up component, which the sign up component is going to be sign up part. So we are going to return sign up part as a closing tag. And then this is where we're going to pass down props into the sign up component. So we have the if statement here. We're going to do an else if the page equals 1 now. Okay? So if page equals 1, we are going to have the next section, which is personal info part. Self-closing tag. And then make sure there's a return here as well. Let me not forget that. And then we're going to have an else. And we don't have to put a page number because we only have 3 pages. So if you had more than 3 pages, you need to put page equals 2, and so on and so on. But since we only have 3 pages, the only other option is page 3. So we're going to return the last page, which is more info part. So there's our logic to determine what page equals what component. So page 0 equals sign up part, page 1 equals personal info, and page 3 equals the more info page. And we are going to have to set this function inside of where I wrote logic. So the way we could do this is we could just write, make sure you put curly braces. Let me actually remove this. Curly braces, page display. And then we have to call that function by putting parentheses. Okay. And it's not going to display anything now because we haven't wrote any code inside of these 3 components right here. So pretty much the next step we are going to do is we're going to work on the button logic. First, let's work on the button logic, and then we'll work on the title. But the title's pretty much ready. We just got to get everything prepared for that title. So the button logic is, if we're on page 0, this previous button, which says previous here, let me just move this code here and then here. This previous button should not allow us to press previous because we're on page 0. So let's just move this line of code down here, and let's start working in this space. So we are going to disable the button. That'll be the first thing. And when you're doing stuff like this, you just got to think of it logically, obviously. And that does help you start solving some problems easier. I mean, it sounds like common sense, kind of which it is, but if page is 0, the button of previous is going to be disabled. And now, under here, we need an on click. So this button is going to be on the bottom of every component, which we're going to have 3 different parts of this sign up form. So we're going to have an on click, and inside this on click, we're going to have an arrow function. And we're going to equal this to set page, because we're going to have to set the page. Every time we click this, we are going to set the page, and then we can name it current page, arrow function will equal the current page minus 1. So if it's on page 1 or 2, which is index 1 or 2, it's going to take us back to the next page. And now the logic is a little different on this page, this button down here. Just because when we're on the last, the second, which is going to be the second index, we actually need the button to say submit, and we actually need that to submit information to our backend and send it to the MongoDB. So for this button, we are going to have an onClick. And inside of this onClick, we're going to have an arrow function. And I'm just going to pass an event handler, which is E right here. Because when we submit forms, we want this event as well. So for this logic, so we're going to say if page equals, we could just put if page equals 2, but if you have more than one page or the pages could change in the future, this will be the better way to put it. If page equals titles dot length minus 1, which means the last page, we are going to show this code here. We're going to have an alert for now, and we're going to just say form submitted. And that's it for now. We're going to add more logic here, but that's going to be when we start doing the back end. And then we're going to have an else here. So if it's not the last page, we're going to set page to our current page arrow function of our current page plus 1. Okay, so now we're going to test and make sure everything is working with the buttons. So as you can see, let me zoom in. So if I click previous, we are on the first page 0 sign up part. The button should be disabled if we're on 0, which it is. It's not doing anything. And if we click next, it should take us to the next one, which is personal info. And if we click next again, we're on more info. Now the next step we need to do is, if we're on the last part right here, this next needs to change to submit. So this shouldn't say next anymore. This needs to say submit. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to have to add logic of inside the button's title. So we're going to do this. And this is pretty simple logic here. We're going to do curly braces. And we want to do if. We're going to do if page equals titles dot length minus 1. So that's the last page. Then if that's true, we are going to have the button say submit. And then if it's not true, we're just going to have the button say what it's been saying, which is next. So there's that logic. And it doesn't, and then it says form submitted. So as you can see there, that logic works as well. And obviously nothing was submitted, but that logic now is starting to work good. And now we could actually create the form inside of each component, and this will look like an actual form. The other thing we have to do is, I just remembered, is we have to do the title. Okay. So the way we can do the title is, which these are the titles here, is in this title section, we need code dynamic as well. The code here needs to be title. Oops, not dot. And then we need to get the index of the page, which will either be 0, 1, or 2, 0, 1, 2. So personal info, more info, which is last page, or sign up. Personal info, we could put sign up info. Or, you know, we could put user info. There we go. So we have user info, personal info, and more info, and then submit. So I mean, that looks pretty clean for a multi-step form. And as you can see, it's definitely taken shape now. We could just leave the progress bar as it is. We could style that later. That could be either up here, you could put it down here. The styling is up to you. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we are going to go inside of our components now. Okay, so now we're going to be working in the sign up part component, which is going to be our first of 3 parts of the form. So we could close this form section up. We are done with it for now. And in the sign up part, there's nothing. So we're going to start with a blank slate. We're going to have an outside div. And the only styling we're going to do here is we're going to have a space Y6. Okay. And then I'm also going to leave comments so it's easier for us to read the code. The first section is going to be the username section. Okay. And then inside of this section, we're going to have a div, a label, and an input. And after we make the first one, which is a label and input, we can just copy and paste them down and make multiple inputs. But this is how I'm going to style them, okay? So we are going to do a div. And in that div, we're going to do a label. In that label, we are going to have username. So as you can see, this is changing as it goes. I know it says sign up part, but like I said, I changed the title to user. And as you can see, it's changing now. And the reason why we're getting hello is because I think it's in app.js. No, it's not. It's in form. So I need to remove the word hello, which is right here. Okay. So in the first part, which is our user info, we have username as the label. And we're just going to create some styles for that. So this is going to be a block of text, a small, font, medium. And then we're going to have text, gray, 700. And that is going to be our label. Let me close this left side. And then underneath the label, we're going to have an input. And then inside of this input, you can have IDs and names and types and values and required and autocomplete. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, so I'm not sitting here just boring you with useless information. So we're going to need a type. So for sure a type, I think. And the type is going to be text. We'll add the value later. We can have an ID, which will equal, we could put a username. And then you could add a bunch more stuff here as well. But we're just gonna auto close this here so we could actually have the section. You can't see it because it's not styled yet, so we're gonna add some styles as well. So we're gonna have a class name. And we're going to have this as a block. We're going to have the height of 14. We're going to have a width of full. So it's going to take the full width inside of that white form div. We are going to have appearance none. And then rounded of medium. We're gonna have a border gray 300. So now you're really gonna be able to see it. We're gonna have a padding left and right of 3. Padding top and bottom of 2. The placeholder will be gray 400. We're going to have a shadow of small. And then we're going to have a focus. And I'm just going to copy that part just because it'll speed up the process. and then paste. Okay, there we go. So you see the focus, when you focus in on it, it changes the ring indigo to 500. So right there, we got the username input. And like I said, the rest of the inputs are going to be easy. Reason being is because there's actually, I have one more style up here. Margin top of one. Let me make sure I have everything good before I move on. We could space this out a little bit more. So the username, so we could have padding bottom of 2. There you go. And it spaces out a little bit more. So you can just play around with the CSS, make sure it fits your needs and wants. So now the next steps are easy because we could just copy and paste down and then just change the types or the IDs as we need to. So let me just press Control S to save it. And then we have this right here. So we need the username, email, password, confirm password. So let's change all the labels. Email, password, confirm password. And then let's change the types. Because you need to change the types, because when you change the type on email and you don't type in an email, it tells you that you need to actually type in an email. So it checks for that. Same thing with the password. The type needs to be password. The reason why is because when you start typing, it gets hidden, as you can see there. You can't see the text. If you just type in text, you can see the text. Let me make sure everything's good. Okay, cool. And like I said, I'm zoomed in at 175% so everybody can see. And we are going to change the IDs real quick. The email ID, the password. Oh, man. And then we could put this as C password, as confirmed password. Oh, no, my fault, not type. Type will be password. And then we can put this as C password. And I'm also going to change the type too for the password because I want to have the option where you could go and click where you can see the password and you don't see the password. I know a lot of websites have that, so we're going to add that in, and we're going to have to change the types to be dynamic coding. Dynamic code. And then let me add a comment section above each one so it's easier to tell the difference between each input. So this is going to be email section. This one is going to be password section. And this one's going to be confirm password. Cool. Okay, so that's good for this first part. So as you can see, user info looks good. And then we still have to do our other two. So like I said, after we do one, it's pretty easy. We could just copy all of this code and then go to our other components. So we're going to copy that. Open up a folder structure. And I'm going to do the state at the end, so we're going to definitely come back to these pages. So next one will be personal info. And I think I copied everything, even the parent div. Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. So if I click next on personal info, it looks the same. Now all we have to do is we have to change the labels. And then when we get the values and on changes, we got to change that as well. So for the first section here, we could have first name. We could do last name. We could do address. And we could keep this simple. And we could just do that to make it pretty simple, actually. Okay, cool. And then let's just change the comments. This will be the address section. This will be last name. And then first name. Type for text for all three. Not password and not email. Make sure you change that. ID, address, just in case you want to target this specific element. Type last name. Oh, not type, ID, my fault. And then this will be first name. Cool. So we now have the first two sections. And now we have to do the third section, which we could copy this again. We could paste this. And it's going to look like that. And then we can make this two sections this time. And then we could just do more info, which could be like, I guess you could do phone number. And then we could just change this to phone number. And I think the type, is there a number as a type? No, that's just, it does that. Okay. So that's what the number one does. So we're just going to do text as well. Okay, cool. And then last thing, phone number. And then we could just put favorite food or something. Something, whatever you guys want to do, you could do. This is just an example. Okay. So now we have a multi-step form. There we go. Okay, so the next step we are going to do in this multi-step form for the front end is we are going to add the state on each one. So to make the code as clean as possible, we are going to go back to the form. We are going to close this left side. And then inside of this form, we have to add the state. Because this is technically the parent. So we could just put data and set data. And then we're going to call an object as the initial state. You could do each one by one, like password, set password, username, set username. But this is a more efficient way of doing the code, and this is how you should technically be doing it. So we're going to have an object inside for our initial state, and then we're going to take each section. So we're going to have username. It's going to be an empty string. And then you have to do a comma because it's an object. And then we have email. Empty string. Cool. Password. Empty string. We're going to have confirm password. Damn, I can't type right now. Okay. So our next section, we have a first name. So first name, empty string. Last name, empty string. We have address, empty string. And then phone number, favorite food. So you could put phone, empty string, and then I'll just put food, empty string. Okay, so those are all of our initial values. And the way we're going to have to use this use state is we're going to pass down the state into these components by prop drilling these back into these components. There's multiple ways, like I said, to code. You could do the use context. You could use React Redux. But for a multi-step form like this, where it's not complicated, you might as well just drill prop this in instead of making a React Redux file and making it more complicated than it should be. So we're going to have to pass in data, which is going to equal data. And then we're going to have set data, which we're going to have as set data. I recommend just naming it the same thing to make it easier for you. You can name it whatever you want, but it just makes it easier in the long run. So we're going to pass this to every component because we need it in every single one. Like I said, if you just want to do each one individually, each state, you have to do a lot more props to pass in here. So your line will be going really far out, and this just cleans up your code. So now we got to catch the props in each of these components. So I'm just going to do that at the top real quick so I don't forget. Data, set data. Data, oh, data, set data. And then data, and then set data. Make sure you pass it in as an object as well with the curly braces. Okay. So now next step is on each part of the components where the inputs are, we need to add an on change, not an on click. So on change, it's a little different when using objects instead of just straight username and set username, just like one component element. So for the input, we just put up here, we're going to have an on change. And that is going to, this is the part that looks different. So we're going to have an anonymous function with the event handler passed inside as a prop. And then this is where it looks a little different. So we're going to still do the set data. So anytime we click it, we're going to set the data. And since we are in the username input, we're going to pass an object inside of set data. And we need to use the spread syntax. So we're going to spread out data. And then the only one we are going to change is username. So username, oh my. Username, and then it'll be event.target.value. Line 12, 54. Where is it? Unexpected use of event. Is it right there? Nope. You know why? Because I think it's supposed to be e.target. Let me see. Okay, that works too. So it's e.target.value. I guess these have to be the same. So if you put e, you must put e here. We'll check at the end to make sure everything's working. So we will make sure. And then the other thing we have to add on is we have to add the value. So the value is going to be data dot username. So we set the data to the username's new value from the e.target.value. And the value is going to be where we typed. Let me move this up here. Okay, so now I'm just going to put this on every input. So for email on the input right here, we have data.email. And then we have to change this to email. Another thing right here, we have the password. Input. Base. Data.password. We got password. And what did I put? I put confirm password. Okay. And then for this right here, for the confirm password, I must put whatever I put over here. So it's confirm password. oops, confirm password, data.confirm password. And this will be confirm password. Okay. So that's it for the first part of our 3-step multi-step form. So we got to copy this and we're going to go into the next one. We're taking in the props. We go in the input, on change, set data, and we're changing the first name. This one, last name. And if you do have any questions, just leave them down below in the comment section. And I'll get to them as soon as possible. I should be able to get to them within, I'll say about 24 hours, if not less. And then the last one on this section is going to be address. And then more info. It's only 2 parts. It'll be phone because that's all I had. And then we're going to have data.phone. And then for this one, no, yeah, it didn't work. We are going to have food and then data.food. Okay, cool. And now I'm just going to test this out. And the way you can test this out is multiple ways. You can go to inspect and then you can pull out this components, Google Chrome extension if you have it, and it'll tell you the state right here. As you can see, all the state is empty. I hope you can see that. I don't know if I can't really zoom in on here, but it shows that all the state is empty. And when I type, it should change to whatever I type. So if I put in B Westwood, it changes to B Westwood. Awesome. So everything looks like it's working. And let me just make sure the submit form is working. And then that should be almost it for the UI and the front end. And the only last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to include the little eye icon right here where you could hide your password and unhide it if you really want to see what you're typing to make sure you don't make a mistake on your password and confirm password. So before we do that, we are going to go to the on click of the button inside of the form of our parent. And then inside of this, if the title's .length -1, which is the last page, if that's clicked, we're going to have an alert of form submitted. And we're also going to console.log the data. Okay. So the data should be all of the new inputs that we put in right here. So let me pull that up real quick, go to the console. And there's a few errors we actually have. Let's see. Let's just make sure though. Let's refresh it. No, we don't have any errors. So another thing too is if you don't open up the console in a while and you get errors, make sure you do refresh your page because errors do happen as you're coding it. They're just part of the process. So we're going to start typing in these inputs, just random inputs, B Westwood. We're going to put in Brett@gmail. This isn't my email, so don't try to email me. If you do want to email me, I can give you my real email, but that's not my email. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next. If you go to the previous, the information should stay here. That's how we coded it, so we could always go back and edit the field. So you're going to do Brett Westwood, 1, 2, 3, Main Street, whatever, and then favorite food. I always put spaghetti when I was younger, so I'm just going to put that. And then on the submit, when I click this, we should get a console log of all the data. So after this form submitted, we get this in the console. which is an object of all the information we typed. So it looks like everything is working up to this point. And the last thing I'm going to show you is, like I said, I'm going to show you how to hide and unhide the password. Okay, so if we want to hide and unhide this password, the first thing we need icons that look like eyes and closed eyes. And where I'm going to get these from is React icons. So make sure we open up another terminal. We go into the client. And then we need to npm install react-icons. Okay. So React icons should be installed onto our system and application. Now inside of we're not actually going to do the form. We need to be inside of the sign up part, which is the user, because that's where the password inputs are. So above here, we could remove this React from React. And we are going to import two things from React icons. We're going to import AI, fill, eye, invisible, and then AI, fill, eye. And this is coming from React icons in the folder of AI. So whatever the first two letters are when you import these, that's what's going to be. So now we have access to this. And the way we are going to use this is we're going to put these inside all of these two inputs, but we also need to add the logic to this, okay? So the way we are going to do that is we could first add the logic above the return. So let's do that. We actually need to use state, because every time we click that, it needs to change. So we're going to import useState from React. And the reason why we need to use state is because we need to handle the password I. That's what we're going to call it, the password I. So const password I, and then set password I, and it equals useState. And this is going to either be a true or false. We're going to set this to false to start. And the reason why is because this needs to either be true or false. It's a Boolean. So that's why we're going to set that as the initial value. Next step we're going to do is we are going to create a function called, we're going to have two functions. We're going to have the one that handles the password and then one that handles the confirm password, because we want them to act as separate entities in a sense. So let's just do handle password I. And then this we could call const password, or just handle password equals an arrow function. And then inside this arrow function, we're going to set the password I. And this is going to be set to the opposite of whatever the password I is. So if it's false, it's true. And then if it's true, it's false. And then let's make one handle confirm password I. And then this needs to be a different name. Oh, and we need different state too, because that's not going to work. Can't change the state of that because it'll change both of them. So we need we could do confirm password I and set confirm password I. And this is also going to be set to false. So for this, we're going to have a const handle confirm password. equal to an arrow function. And this is, we're going to set the confirm password to the opposite of whatever the confirm password I is at the moment, which is false, and then true. So now we need to implement this into our actual code. And the way we do that is we are going to scroll down here. And inside of our password and confirm password section, we need logic in here. Okay, so we're going to want to have, let me zoom in on this part. We're going to want the password I to be on the right side inside of the inputs. So that means we have to make each input relative. So the div that surrounds it, we are going to add a relative to each class name. And then underneath each input, we'll start with the password section. We are going to need another div, because inside of this div, we are going to have the logic and the password I. So this div needs to be styled as well. We can style that after. So we need the first one we're going to have is the AI fill invisible. And let me just close this, and you're not going to be able to see it. Oh yeah, it's right here. So it's right here, and the reason why we want a relative the whole div is because we need to make this absolute, and then we just need to center it to make sure it's here. So we're going to work on that right now. We're going to have the text as 2XL, so that makes it bigger. We're going to need to make this absolute. Now we could actually put in an input. We're going to put the top as 4 and right as 5. We might have to adjust this. Let's see. Yeah, we're gonna have to adjust that. So we can put the top as maybe 2. Needs to be more actually. Top 8, top 12, top 10. There we go. That looks pretty good. So that's pretty centered for our input right there. And then we could have a cursor as the pointer. Cool. So now when we go over this, it looks like we could click it, which we're going to make it clickable now. So that we're going to have an onClick event handler on side of the AI invisible eye. And then this one, let me just make sure. This one is going to be the handle password click, or handle password. Cool. So that means that every time that I click it, it's just going to change true or false. So that means now we need to actually, when it's false, it needs to be open, an open eye, and the type needs to change as well. So there is a lot of logic to this. There's probably an easier way to do it. Like I said, when you code, there's multiple ways to do things. So we have the closing tag right here. And the next thing we need to do is we need to add logic saying if the password I, let me just make sure the password I, yep. So if the password I equals false, then we need to be showing this. We need to be showing this right here. Else, if the password I isn't showing false, then we need to show the actual I that's open. So that's just going to be an AI fill I. And then we need to close this as well, because it's going to give us an error. There we go. Nope. And there's no onClick. So we're going to have an onClick, and it should be the same thing, handle password, because it'll change to whatever the opposite is. So there you go. As you can see, it is changing, like you could see, and you can't see the password. So we're just going to take this same logic end div, and we are going to add it to the bottom here, but we're just going to have to change one thing. And the only thing we're going to have to change is the functions inside here, because we created two separate functions for a confirm password. Because if you click this, it's going to change both. So we need a handle confirm password. And then this is a handle confirm password. I spelled that wrong. Okay, cool. So if I click this now, let me save it. It's still doing it. Oh, because I didn't change this password I. What was it? Was confirm password I. Confirm. Now it should work. There we go. So now each one works independently. And the last logic we have to do is if the I is open, it should be showing the text and what your password is. If the I is closed, then it shouldn't. So the way we're going to do that is we have to go to the type. And the type is password. Like I said, password shows hidden text like this. And then text shows regular text. So we're just going to change the type for each one now. And we're going to match it up to whatever one each one is. So this confirm password I, if it equals false, if it equals false, then it's showing the invisible I, which that means we want it to show the password. Else, well, we don't want it to show the password. We want it to show a password type. That's what I mean. My fault. Password type. And then if not, then we want to show text. So if we click, it's hidden. You see, if we click this, oh, I'm on confirm password. My fault. Bang. And you can see it changes now. Awesome. Awesome. And now we could just do the same thing for this type up here. So we're going to do password I. If it equals false, then we are going to show a type of password, which will hide the password. And if not, then we're just going to show text. Cool. So it looks like everything is matching. This pretty much completes the UI of the multi-step form. The only thing I haven't done is I haven't done form validation, which this video is already getting long enough. I am going to create a part 2 for this video. It is going to be for the backend setup of this specific form right here. So it is going to be a continuation video. It should be out within the next 24 to 48 hours. So watch out for that video. I am going to use MongoDB, the MERN setup to connect it and to make this an actual functioning form. So if you ever do want to create a project for yourself or for a client that you're getting paid for freelance work, this is a perfect tutorial for you to watch once or twice to make sure you really understand the key concepts. And like I said, the only thing that I haven't done is I haven't done form validation. So if you want me to make a video on form validation, just comment down below and I'm happy to do it. I hope this video has helped you a lot. If it has, please hit that like button. Also subscribe for more content exactly like this. And like I said, part 2 should be out no later than 48 hours. And that will be the backend setup of this multi-step form.